Okay, for a long time there's been this talk about zombie Jesus. Jesus was not a zombie. A zombie is a reanimated corpse that is mindless and has a hunger for human flesh, sometimes brains. Jesus was not a zombie as demonstrated by the Bible, in that when he returned from the dead, he did not try to eat his disciples. Get off of the Jesus is a zombie kick. So now that all that silly zombie nonsense is out of the way, let's take a look at another undead creature from literature called a lich. Now, a lich starts out as a mage. Then, through a process involving a deadly potion, dies but resurrects a few days later, with the memories, personality, and abilities it possessed in life, as well as the ability to control lesser undead that it summons to protect itself. And it also has what's called a phylactery. The phylactery is where it houses its spirit. It is usually protected by its own magic, including having its own magical abilities. Liches are usually evil in literature, but there are occasionally good ones that postpone their life through undeath in order to finish unfulfilled quests, have guardianship over ancient evil, and oversight for future generations. So, we need to establish, was Jesus a mage? A mage is defined as a magician or learned person. A rabbi is referred to as a Jewish scholar or teacher. We can presume that the teacher would have to be a learned person. Mark 9:5 states that Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." In this statement, with Peter referring to Jesus as a rabbi, we can tell that he is considered the teacher, and therefore a learned person, and therefore a mage. Alright, so we can see that Jesus has met the criteria of being a mage. Let's take a look at Jesus' life and see if there are any other criteria he meets. Mark 15:36-37. Someone ran, filled a sponge with wine vinegar, put it on a staff, and offered it to Jesus to drink. "Now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to take him down," he said. With a loud cry, Jesus breathed his last. So one of the criteria for a lich was that they drank a potion that put them to death. Now, while the passage does say wine vinegar, we don't really know what was on that sponge. Could this have been the cause of Jesus' death in an incantation to bring him back? Well, so far we have established Jesus is a mage and that he drank something immediately before he died. We also know that he came back from the dead supposedly 3 days later. Now, I left out one part because it was listed as a often or sometimes, not a requirement for being a lich. But the article also said that this ritual was usually done during a full moon. Coincidence that it supposedly there was an eclipse when Jesus drank this? I don't think so. Luke 24:44. He said to them, "This is what I told you while I was still with you. Everything must be fulfilled that is written about me in the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms." So, what we have here is Jesus stating, "This is what I told you while I was still with you." We see that he rose with retention of his memories, another one of the criteria for being a lich. So, let's take a look at our list, check that off, and we're pretty well on our way. We've established that Jesus is a mage, that he could have been taking a deadly potion in order to turn him into a lich, that he rose again, and that he did so with his memories intact. Matthew 27:52-53. And the graves were opened, and the many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised, and coming out of the graves after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. So, checking in with our criteria list, mage, check. Took potion that caused the death, check. Rose again with memories intact, check. Ability to command lesser undead to protect it, check. Let's see what else we've got. Okay, so next step. Did Jesus have a phylactery? Luke 22:19-20. In the same way, after the supper, he took the cup, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you." Covenant being a binding, and blood long being symbolic for life. Are we looking at the idea of Jesus binding life to the inanimate object of the cup, therefore creating a phylactery? If so, he'd definitely go through great lengths to protect it like any good lich would. In the King Arthur tales, we find knights seeking the Holy Grail, and in doing so they face many challenges and many beasts. So, mage, potion, retains memories, commands lesser undead, has a phylactery. Wow, it's looking pretty well towards Jesus being a lich here, doesn't it? Now, it's stated that a phylactery often has powers of its own. We can also see in the stories that the Holy Grail is said to have the ability to heal wounds, diseases, and depression. So, we can add to this, not only does he have the phylactery, but the phylactery itself has its own innate powers, fitting once more the criteria of a lich. So, what about motivation? Why would Jesus turn himself into a lich? Well, according to the description, it comes down to unfulfilled quests, guardianship over an ancient evil, and oversight of future generations. In Christianity, we see all three of these. Let's start with the basis of the Christian religion is the concept of Jesus continues to watch over his followers and will return for a second coming. In this, we see guardianship of future generations. We see protection from an evil because most Christians believe that he is the defense against Satan. And we see an uncompleted quest, the desire for this second coming. So, Jesus, a mage converted into undeath by a potion that kills him, rises a few days later, has his memories intact, commands lesser undead, created a phylactery, which was guarded and protected, had its own magical powers, and we have even the classic motivations for why he would turn himself into a lich. So, I'm going to leave you with this thought. Revelation 20:12, "And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God, and the books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works." So, we're looking at an apocalypse here, with a lich raising an army of the dead. Perhaps the makers of World of Warcraft are actually prophets. Who knows?